Coming up on today's episode.
One of my young clients, she's going through a divorce and she's got a 2-year-old son. And the house was going to go away. So it's not buying, it's obviously the taking over the property. It's all pretty much like buying for her. She's in the property. She was not going to get the full custody of the son if she didn't have the house. So I, again, sat down with her, explained her the process. And I got her the pre-approval. Pre-approval to get the property transferred to her name. And when I called her, she cried.
Oh my.
She cried loudly. It's not like, she just screamed, she cried. And I just didn't know what to do. I started crying too.
Dodgy advice and bad decisions can cost you big in real estate. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen. Welcome to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jo Agresta, and it's time to take control of your property journey together. Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast, your listening how-to guide to the Australian finance and real estate market. I'm your host, Jo Agresta, and on today's show, we have a very special guest. Now, I'll introduce it this way. If you've been bombarded with terms like LVR, LMI, guarantor, or you're simply drowning in financial lingo, trying to figure out exactly how to secure your home loan, then this episode is exactly where you need to be. Joining me today is Kiran Sood, the award-winning mortgage broker and recently nominated for Residential Broker of the Year, oh my God, and founder of Deal for Loans. Kiran has built a reputation for guiding home buyers clearly and confidently through their finance journey, whether it's securing your very first home or navigating tricky refinancing situations. So she's here today to demystify mortgages, clarify the confusion, and equip you with actionable insights to tackle your home loan journey head on. Kiran, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me today, Jo.
Awesome. No, of course. I've been so excited. And, we were just catching up right before we started. And you mentioned us on LinkedIn the other day. You've just been nominated for Residential Broker of the Year. Is that correct?
That is right. Thank you.
How are you feeling? That's amazing.
I'm very excited. I'm absolutely excited.
What an incredible nomination, for the year and in the whole mortgage broking space. I think that's a massive accomplishment, no matter which way you cut it. What do you think got you there? How did you get there?
Great question, Jo. I have always had so much care for my clients. For me, being a broker is not just getting the home loan sorted. It is a journey. It is a journey for me with my clients. I love when they get the keys of their first home. It's an emotional touch for me, and I believe being a residential broker of the year is a picture of that.
Yeah.
That I love doing what I do. I love my clients. I love being with them.
I love that. I think, that was one of the things that drew me to want to interview you was we spoke about, if you remember, when we were talking about Abodey and what we do in that business and how we, try and personalise things. And then you said, I do this manually for my clients when they're buying property. And my mind was blown because, you're a mortgage broker, you deal mainly on the finance side, but obviously your clients really, connect with you to be able to go through the property journey with them, checking all the property details and making sure they're making not only a good, sound investment financially, but also as an asset.
Yeah. Now that is correct. I want to make sure that the property they buy, it is a good property for them. Especially for the first home buyers. If you start good, you'll do good.
Yeah.
You got the first property right. You've done the first transaction right. You've learned everything in the first go. It's easy for my clients. It's easy for me. Yeah. I don't have to sit and explain everything again and again and again. They understand from the start.
Of course. And I think that makes a massive difference, when you've got someone to guide you on the journey, and especially brokers. I always call brokers the real estate psychologists outside of advisor.
Yes, you got that right.
Because you're the one that's kind of the trusted advisor, right? You're not only dictating the finance side, but you're also there for the emotional support. Because like you said, you get emotionally invested. You want the best for that person.
Yes, I'm very emotionally invested with my clients, and pretty much all of my clients are my friends. I go to the weddings, I go to the birthday parties. The relationship is long term.
That's amazing. I have to say congratulations again. I think that speaks volumes, just how you talk about yourself, your business and your clients, the fact that you're building those types of relationships where you are invited to weddings. That's a beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you.
Of course. Well, I have to start today with a little game.
Yes.
Okay. It's not too intimidating.
Okay.
You know the terms. But I want to do just a short icebreaker. So I'm going to say a few mortgage-related terms, and I want you to share the first thought that comes into your brain. Just one or two words of what you think about it.
Let's get on to it.
Nice. All right. First word, pre-approval.
Something you definitely gotta have.
Interest rates.
Amazing. Doesn't matter how much they are, buy the property.
Refinancing.
A great deal.
And credit score.
Always great.
Fixed.
No judgment, I should say, on the credit score.
No judgment. I like that. Fixed versus variable.
Variable.
Stamp duty.
Something you have to pay.
It's like crying emoji. And equity.
Got us getting quicker to build that.
Nice. And offset count.
All the way.
And last one, settlement day.
As soon as possible.
Yeah, we need it, 100%. Thank you for playing that game with me, just for a bit of fun. I like to bring
No, this is amazing. It's funny. You wouldn't think of these things when someone throw them at you. You're just every day going with all these things on the floor, and then when you come to that, it's a good game.
So I want to get started, at the very beginning of your journey, because of course, like we've talked about, you're very passionate. What started you on the path to becoming a mortgage broker and getting involved in the world of finance?
So that's my favorite question. I should say that. My journey is a little bit different than other brokers. It definitely started off with me buying the property. When I first met my mortgage broker, I thought, wow, this is amazing. How beautiful is that? My mortgage broker came to my house. He explained me everything, how to buy the property. And I was new to Australia. I moved only 3 years ago. I didn't understand the whole process. I loved meeting my broker. I loved meeting my builder, the conveyancer. It was such a beautiful journey, and I wanted to live it again and again and again. So I thought there was definitely a gap. There's so many things I did not understand while I was buying the property. So I wanted to get in there, be a mortgage broker. Numbers is my thing. I love numbers. I wanted to be a mortgage broker, help other people understand what I didn't help, and on the same time, also keep going and enjoy that journey myself again and again.
I love that. So it's like you get to live vicariously, through your lives, through your clients.
Every day. I tell my clients, when I buy a property and there's a settlement, I say, when you get the keys, send me a picture. It's something I love seeing it. The picture, the key of the property when they get in their first time.
That's so beautiful. I think you've said it really well, like with, the reason why you got into it. Often professionals go into these industries, start their own businesses because they've experienced the pain points, or good. They've seen the good parts of it and been really inspired. And I think instead of you having this horror story and saying, I'm going to fix it, you've had a really different one. Your why is based on how great the service was. That you thought, if I could do this, I would love to do this because you enjoyed your own journey. So
absolutely.
That's incredibly rare and I think very unique to what you do. And, there's no shortage of mortgage brokers in Australia. I think we're now up to 80% of the nation actually buys through a broker instead of going through a bank, which is a huge, shift in 20 years ago. This was definitely about people trusted their banks. What makes your approach at Deals for Loans, a little bit different? And how do you provide, unique value to your clients?
There is no shortage of mortgage brokers in Australia. Where we are unique or where we are different or we like to do it differently is making sure that we slice up all this confusing mortgage jargon into small pieces and make sure that people understand what they're doing. So at Deals for Loans, it's very simple. The process is really simple. It's not like so many documents, this and that. When people ask me, Kiran, what do I need? I said 3 things. Your documents for ID, your documents, payslip documents, and your bank statement. That's it. All I need is 3 things. And it cuts down for people rather than sending them a bigger list. Of course, we send a list, but I make it easier. So if you look at the documents I need, it's just 3 things. The payslips, statements, and the IDs. It makes it very easy for them to understand, okay, these are documents we need to provide. My first call with the client is the 45 minutes explaining them what it is going to look like. So they are not surprised. Oh, Kiran, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. I tell them who is a conveyancer, what is the role of a buyer's agent if they need one, who is a real estate agent, and what sort of questions to ask. What's going to happen on the day of the settlement? You gotta get insurance in between. All those little steps, I explain them in my first meeting, first call, whatever it is. So that way they understand what's coming up. Second meeting, so by the first meeting, I request all the documents. Second meeting, we have everything, and I lay down a plan for them.
Nice.
I explain them what is principal and interest, what is offset, why you should have offset, or why you should go variable or fixed, whatever it is as per their situation. And 2 calls, they understand everything.
Yeah.
And those 2 are very committed calls or devoted calls, I'll say, to my clients for them to understand. I do get the clients, they're like, okay, do whatever you think is fit. I said, no, this is probably your first home. If you learn it now, my life's easier next time. I don't have to do 2 calls.
True.
I only do 1 next time.
And it's true. I think that's really awesome that you've got like a method, to the madness, I say, like that you sit down and you take the time to explain
Yes.
all of this journey, because it is so full on and buyers are overwhelmed.
Absolutely are. Sometimes I get people to me with a contract of sale and I said, who's your conveyancer? And they said, who's conveyancer?
Oh, yeah. And that's so common.
It's so common.
They don't get one. I often find, and you probably find the same, buyers engage a conveyancer when it's too late. And I've said this on other episodes where I always like to just mention it. It's too late by the time you make an offer.
Yes.
And then you're told, get a conveyancer.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
need to be doing them way before.
Yeah.
You make an offer. That's the step beforehand to make sure that the contract is correct before you commit anything. At the very, very, very first step, and I'll ask you this, should be starting with a mortgage broker. I'm sure you agree.
Can I add to the previous question? So 12 years ago, I bought my first home. I didn't engage a conveyancer. I didn't know.
You didn't know. This is the point.
Exactly, and this is why I make the point of everybody knowing this upfront.
Yeah,
Who is a conveyancer? What is their role?
of course.
And who is everyone in your journey?
I think so. How did were you fortunate enough not to have any big mistakes by not engaging the conveyancer, or was there anything that kind of happened in your transaction by not having that conveyancer?
There's many things happening. I honestly didn't know what to do. Like I said, I was new to Australia. I didn't know what to do. So I had a great broker, not a doubt, but the journey, I didn't know what to do. So the first land I looked at, I signed the contract.
Oh, wow.
And I signed it all by myself alone. Because I was told that it's going to get sold tomorrow if you don't buy it today. So I bought it today by myself. What do you do? Being a first home buyer, new to Australia, not knowing anything. He said, for $1,000 you'll have it. I'm like, okay, great. So,
Now, how many times do we hear that in a transaction and we know I'm not the only one here?
yeah. And I honestly, it's been surprising that I did all those mistakes in my journey that I talk about to my clients now, so they don't make that mistake.
Yeah, of course. I think that's so good that, lived experience.
Yes.
It's unique.
Yes.
You can't compete with it because you've been there, you've done that, and you can share your war stories and say, listen,
Yes.
I've done this. Don't be like me. Don't do what I did the first time. Let's help you avoid some of the common pitfalls. And
Absolutely.
I think what I really see the value is, Kiran, and where you're different to a lot of other advocates I've spoken with, is more other brokers I've spoken with, is you act very similar to an advocate. In a lot of ways, like you're really advocating for your clients, and it's very absolutely. So, going into navigating the mortgage journey, I think when people talk finance, they think one of 10 million things. One, I've just saved money. What do I do now? I think I want to buy a home. There's often a mental decision, that goes in your mind to say, I want to buy a home. And often what people do first is they jump on realestate.com and go to an inspection before they've even looked at finance. And then they do the whole transaction in reverse. They find the dream home, and then they realise, crap, I need to get finance. So they start pushing the transaction.
That is correct.
What's your, can you talk me through what a smooth and successful, home loan, finding a home process looks like when someone works with you?
This is one thing I always tell all the people I meet or the clients or whenever I speak is your first call whenever you have a thought in your mind of buying a property is to a mortgage broker. That is, even you don't have the money yet, you're still starting to save or you're thinking of 3 to 6 months time, your first call is to a mortgage broker. I have many people who has call me maybe 6 months prior to buying a property, and I set them on a journey of this is what we need to do, this is how much we need to save if they've got zero money. And many times people don't even know they've got the money that they can buy right now, but they're thinking they're going to do it next year. So a smooth journey, get to a mortgage broker, have a plan ready, then you start looking for the properties. And a lot of times I get a call in the second, I'm going to see a property tomorrow. And I tell my clients, I'll do a quick calculation. I'm fine for you to go and make an offer on that property subject to finance, and we can deal with it next week. But at least you've spoken to me. I know it is all doable.
That's awesome. I think, how valuable to have that contact beforehand, because it does make a difference when, if you're a buyer, like a lot of our listeners tuning in, they'll see big questions like, mortgage brokers don't work weekends. What if I always need them on a Saturday afternoon, this and that, and then they have to rush. And I'm often like, pre-prepare, so what's the best thing that your best advice to someone who's possibly going to auction this weekend, and your broker's possibly not available via phone call or text? Can they, what's your advice to them to get in touch with you sooner, or how can they get prepared for, an auction or an open for inspection?
First, let me say that mortgage brokers do work on Saturday, not on the computers, on the phone. My clients know to call me if they're at the auction and they're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They can call me at that point of time when they're starting an auction. They're making an offer, they can call me. I've always told them, if you're in a stressful situation, don't make the wrong decision, just give me a call. But like you said, it's better to pre-plan beforehand.
Of course.
So we always get a property report for our clients. Give them a property report, give them a budget. That budget could be based on their property, what they should look at, not going more than that. Or that budget could be your own personal budget that you can't afford more than that.
Yeah.
So I think having those two things combined is very important. When you're there at the auction, yes, you can go 2, 4, 5K extra, but you're going crazy, going 20K and being emotional, because sometimes people make eye contact and like, oh, I'm going to outbid you, I'm going to win, It's not about winning. When you're a buyer, you're not winning, the vendor's winning.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's so true. And you've got to, God, you said that so right, the vendor's winning.
No, you're not winning, you're losing. Like the more higher you go. So planning my clients up front is very important, or everybody who's not my client out there who's watching this right now, it's very important that you have a plan to go to the auction. You have a strategy, you know what to do, and you know when to bid and when to stop.
I think that's
or you know when to make an entry.
I think I always talk about how much I'll be very candid, I hate big auction. Number of reasons for it, but I think because it is hard to stop when you're not buying. Like when you're an advocate, you can be very neutral. You buy with your head, you're not buying with your heart. But when you're your own purchaser and you're representing yourself, wow, it is hard to stop. Yes. You're so close to buying that property, and before you know it, you're 15,000 over what you originally thought was going to be your maximum. And you've been going up in increments of 5 and then 5, and all of a sudden you're at the top and you go, holy crap, this is exactly what my broker told me not to do.
And I've done it.
And now I've done it, what do I do? And I've seen so many buyers go through that journey where they end up asking for long settlements so they can save that difference in deposit and extra money. What are some of the things that home buyers can avoid? Like you made a really good point about saying be prepared and set your limits, but what do you do when clients do come to you and say, I've done something, I've overpaid, or I've committed to a purchase that you told me it was out of my budget? What's the strategy and how do you help them work through that?
First thing is I always laugh. And this happens so often, you would not believe. It happens so often that people come in and say, oh, Kiran, I think if it's 10, 15K I can manage, but I have people come back with extra 50K. On the auction.
Oh no, so I hate auction.
I love auction. I've got a pretty good tips on how to win on an auction, but I'm saying that the people, when they come back, then we're going to sit down again. We'll plan a new strategy, what we did in the past, we check whether the borrowing capacity is there, simply we can afford it, or in some cases, let's, chop down some of the liabilities you have, close down the credit cards, or how can I make it happen. Like you said, people ask for the longer settlements. A lot of people, they get money from the family to make it happen. So there's all different strategy for different people depending upon how it will work.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously, my clients, whatever they do, you've got to make it work.
Well, I think, you said it right. There's obviously a lot of, guidance that you give. But at the end of the day, people are their own, their own agents, and they So no, but you don't understand. Like, this property was perfect, and I needed to pay $15,000 more. That was the fact. And
Yes.
I totally get that. That's the emotion, and when you really want something, go after it. If that's the cost it is, hopefully it doesn't put you out of pocket. But it's so good to know that when you do have a good broker working on your side, that you can be light with them and have that laugh and go, okay, let's have a look at our options.
What do you do?
It's not so much like a scolding, so don't have that hesitation. I think especially if you're working with someone like Kiran who's so understanding, you've got to just be honest and come with an open heart and say,
yes. I say this. I said, I'm on your side. I work for you. I'm not working for the real estate bank, agent, anybody. I'm working for you. Tell me everything.
Yeah.
Once I know everything, I can make a better plan.
Yeah, and you can actually strategize with them and help
Yes.
them out. I love that. And what are some of the biggest misconceptions or myths, I should say, that buyers have when starting their home loan journey? Is there any that come to mind?
The first one is definitely the deposit. Circling back to the previous question, a lot of time people think I can't buy right now, but they can, because there are so many government schemes out there these days, especially for first-time buyers.
Yeah.
They can just buy with 5%, especially if you talk about Victoria, all they need is 30,000. The first one is definitely people think they need a bigger deposit. And the second one, I think, which is my favorite one, people say, I'm going to buy when the interest rate comes down.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Yeah. So this is the one that I always talk about. You buy now. You're getting there sooner. The equity is quicker.
I want to ask you
Get to the next one.
I want to ask you this question. So when buyers come to you and they say, when's the right time to buy? What do you often say? If you've got the stamina, if you've got the budget, and you've got the means, go for it.
Exactly.
Like, don't wait for the market to do something. We didn't predict COVID.
Yes.
And COVID, as we know, was a very big market for property. But no one could have told you that was the way it was going to go. We all thought the complete opposite. But instead, everyone saved their money and was like, I can actually save money and buy a house now. I'm ready in the market.
So it's definitely my big one.
Yeah.
Don't wait for anything. Don't wait for, I don't know where the property market is going. No one can truly predict.
No. They get it wrong all the time. Economists get it wrong all the time.
Exactly.
We can only predict based on history. And, there's only so much you can do to get it right.
Exactly.
So no, it makes sense. And let's talk about some of the common pitfalls for buyers. Can you share 2 or 3 critical mistakes that home buyers, especially those first home buyers, regularly make? And how do they avoid falling into those traps, I suppose?
Yeah. The first mistake which I commonly notice people make, they're talking to the real estate agent. They like the property. They get so excited. There and then sign the contract. And they didn't even realize they signed the contract. They said, we just made the offer.
Oh, so that letter of offer.
Yeah.
And then they actually have signed
They
the
have
contract.
actually signed the contract. So when I sit down and explain, my first 45 minutes is where you gotta get the contract reviewed before we make an offer, this and that. And I say verbal is okay, email is okay, text is okay. And they don't realize, they say, no, Kiran, it's just an offer. And I'm just, no, it's a contract, we gotta get to the next step. So this is one of the biggest mistakes I see, and I see it a lot. Because whenever there's a first home buyer, exactly what I did when I got my first time. You look at the house, you're like, oh, there's another person who's looking at the house, they're gonna buy it, but I want it. So that is one of the biggest mistakes I see happening very commonly.
Wow. I think that's a really big one to mention, to be honest. I think that if you're not realising you're signing a contract, that's scary.
It is true, you're making an offer, right?
Yeah,
it's true.
right.
But you're making an offer on the contract, other parties sign, later.
You're done, it's all up to you now.
Yeah.
And what do you think, I know we spoke earlier, when buyers always need to engage a broker, I feel as the first step in the journey before they look at property, So with, when you get your buyers, you talked about a really good journey that you take them through, those first 2 meetings being crucial. And, we talked about some of the common mistakes they've made. But I wanted to kind of talk about, the current marketplace, because you say, we've talked about buying now, right? It's like, when's the right time to buy? Now, when it's right for you, when you've got the motivation to. But there's been some significant changes, obviously. There's things happening, in the election coming up. The market itself has seen significant changes in the past year, especially with the interest rates fluctuating. And this is such a hot topic with interest rates. It's interesting that you say, don't worry about the interest rate, just buy. What are the trends, or what are you noticing so far coming into 2025? What's been different to last year? Have you noticed anything that has been, trending differently?
I think it's going to be a good year for the first home buyer who were not able to afford last year or the last couple of years. We've already seen one rate cut, and hopefully we'll see another one, or a little bigger one next month, as per the banks or the economists' predictions. So what I'm saying, people who couldn't afford the property last year, even though they had the deposit, they're ready to go, they might be able to say that they are now able to afford the property, get into the property market sooner. And that's the start, I say, for everyone. Whether you buy a first property as an investment or first property to live in, the first property is a start, and some of those people will be getting to that first property in this year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And we're seeing already people contacting and saying, Kiran, what happens if, we see 50 basis next month? What's going to happen? Am I going to be able to afford? Because sometimes there's only a small gap, and hopefully this will be able to help people to fill up that small gap.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, insight into interest rates, because I often love asking about this with mortgage brokers, because you see all the deals going through, you're writing the loans and you're seeing rates at different things. What's one of the tips that, we're talking a lot about home ownership and home buyers, but switching gears to managing, you obviously do refinancing for home loans and things like that. I want to unpack that a little bit for the audience, because a lot of the listeners that are tuning in today, we've had some questions submitted around refinancing. And it's often about a lot of the scenarios I'm getting are people that have built property and they end up with two separate home loans at the start. They have a contract so they have a home loan for their land, and then they have a home loan for the construction.
Yeah.
And then 12 months in or 2 years in, they're like, oh, we should probably merge those things and refinance into one bulk loan. What are the benefits of refinancing, and how does it actually work with?
I look refinancing a little bit differently than many people do. I don't think refinancing is necessarily important. Every time you refinance, there is a cost involved. And I say this to all my clients as well. Unless there's a bigger difference, we will do it. But if you see a small difference, there's no point of doing it. Always gotta remember there's an exit fee from your existing bank. There could be a settlement fee from the new bank. There are government charges you're gonna pay. Talking about land and construction. So yes, today you're thinking we're gonna merge it into one. With the market changing in the coming months, what if you wanna fix 50% of the loan and then leave some of it variable with the offset so you can pay it off sooner, but you also wanna cover some of your risk by fixing some of the amount. So in some of those cases, it might be important for you to have some portions separate, because it's a pain, you're paying 2 repayments, that's all it is. You're not really doing anything yourself. So say bank account is just 2 payments are being taken.
Sure.
For your own point of view, it's not making any difference, but next year if you're gonna go again, refinance again, because now you're gonna make a split. That's also very important to know. For some people it might not be. They always want to keep it variable. I prefer variable for myself always to see the way the market goes. So depending on everyone's goals, I also do calculations when refinance alone is money in your pocket rather than looking at the interest rate. So I'll do the calculation. So a lot of people tend to look that the repayment goes down, whereas they can afford the repayment, setting up a new loan time or whatever. But if you do the numbers, interest figure as a repayment, interest only figure versus interest only figure with a new loan, and you can see how much you save, you get the real figure of what is the point of refinancing rather than putting it all together. I try to set my clients good in one go, and I tell them not to focus on a small 0.1, 0.2 interest rate, focus on bigger money. How do you take out the equity, how you buy the next property, how you make more money rather than saving little money.
I think that this is a really good point, and it's very interesting, with, what you do at Deals for Loans. Like, I think the most interesting part to me is mortgage brokers do so much more than just write home loans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about what other services that you provide, and if it's not just home buyers, like who can reach out to you, like for the listeners that are thinking, I'm not buying a house yet, but I feel like I need to talk to someone about this.
Yes. At Deal Salons, apart from home loans, we do everything else. We do asset finance, we do commercial loans, commercial purchases, commercial finances, you name it, anything of the lending, we take care of clients. But we're talking about the journey or the process is we, like I mentioned before, I will tell my clients what help we can provide when they're buying the property. Providing them with the property reports, for example, going through with them, what suburbs they're looking at, chopping it down. A lot of times when the people come to Australia, they don't know where to live.
That's a fair
I think the first decision is which suburb do we buy the property? And I talk to them about, okay, where do you work? How far is the job? How many kids you have? Which school they want to go to? Where's your friend circle? Where's your family? We put it all together and then I say, sometimes I don't even have to say they realize with this conversation, oh, I'm going to live in Craigieburn because, this is where we're going to go to school, let's travel to work. So I help them to pick a survey. Technically, just by talking, they make their own decision, obviously.
Yeah, you're just sort of asking the right question.
Even when it comes to the property, I always say, maybe write down what do you want. Do you want a bigger garage or do you want a bigger kitchen? Do you want more bedrooms? Because once you have it planned for yourself, you're going to the property, you're walking into a house, you feel like, this house is for me.
Yeah, and you're much clearer
with your mind. At that point of time, offering extra 2 to 5K might not make a bigger difference because you got the property of your choice where you want to live for the next 10 years. So just providing a clarity to their mind is something I work with my clients before they get into the home loan. So they're happy with where they want to live, they're happy with what kind of house they want to buy, they've got a pre-approval, they know the right questions to ask, whether that's emotionally or, practically, put it all together. So once their mind is all bundled up that this is what we're going to do, I think it makes it much easier.
I think that's awesome. Like, it's a really good, I feel reassured. I align with this so much because so much of what I do, with Abodey is about this.
Yes.
How do I get the full picture, think of the full picture? And I think it's so important. And I think it's incredibly rare that you do get a mortgage broker who has this type of approach.
Yes, and that's why I was impressed when you mentioned 140 because I never heard of anything like that. And I've never heard anyone speaking. For me, it's just natural because, you want to buy a house where you're going to live or all that. And that's why I'm so impressed with what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. That was a nice little plug for me. But, back to you, of course, because like I said, I was looking forward to this interview for many reasons. And I think, you talked about negotiation. You have some great tips when you're at auction. I would love to unpack that a little bit because in a competitive property market, I'd imagine you have a lot of your clients that come to you and say, I've missed out on another property or they're missing out due to multiple reasons. What is your kind of guidance or tips to these buyers who are going to many auctions or going, or making offers and losing?
You're going to make me say some personal tips now, but here we go.
Oh, you don't give away the farms.
I'll just give one or two. I always tell my clients not to start the auction. Never. Just stay and watch who's there, what they're doing. Often you start, then, you're in it, real estate agent standing next to you, you get pushed, you're pumped up. Yeah, I can do it. So I tell my clients not to start, not even to mention anything, whether you're there to buy the property. Stay quietly, see what happens.
Yeah.
If we are still within the budget of what we decided, and I always tell my clients, look, we're going to go up to 800, but if you're going to end up being 830, it's manageable. So it's fine, we can do it. So let's say the auction stops at 750, they've gone down to that little $500,000 mark, that's make your entry. And put in a position what you can afford, and they've already backed out. Many times it works for my clients, work for myself as well. So I think this is something I tell my clients, add a lot more to it, how to be there and present themselves in the auction. My clients have a good rate, success rate at the auctions.
Oh, very good. Well, there you go. If you want extra tips and all the trade secrets, you have to go to Kiran. So, I think I want to take, a step back in the journey where these, home buyers obviously have an idea before they come to a broker. They've saved their deposit. They've done a lot of the hard work. The sacrifice has already happened. But what's your advice or guidance to buyers who maybe are hearing this and saying, okay, I don't have savings at the moment. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I want to change my spending habits and change the way I do this. Is there, do you help those buyers typically who they're not on market yet? They're probably a year or two away from buying, but if they wanted to have a conversation about how to get themselves on the right track, are you the right person to speak with, or is that more of a financial advisor?
It is definitely something they can talk to financial planner, but the one simple thing I tell my clients, what I feel is people do it opposite. We spend, then we save. We gotta save, then we gotta spend. So you clear $1,000 a week. What are your expenses? So I sit down and say, let's look at your expenses. Okay, your expenses $500. You getting $1,000 a week. Where's the money going? We don't know, because we think, okay, whatever's left over, we'll put away. So I tell them, let's start by putting $500 away, non-touchable money. We're not gonna touch that. Live with $500. If you run out, take from that money, so you know what you've taken out. And often people come back and say, Kiran, I think you're right. Now, since that money is put away, we don't see it in our everyday use account. We are able to save more. And the same applies with the offset. I tell my clients, the day you get paid, keep the money you're going to spend, put everything else into the offset. I mean, the spending money account is the offset as well, but then a locked away offset where we're not taking out money every day as well. I think that works very well for the people. When they don't see it, they don't spend it.
And I think you've summed that up beautifully. It's like, it's just a simple thing. It's conscious saving.
Yes.
It's not accidental saving where
Yes,
you just get a paycheck and you're letting it, sit there and go, oh, hey, I happened to save $5,000.
Yes.
Cool. But you didn't do it on purpose. There was no plan. It was just you didn't spend all your money that week.
Yeah.
Which I think that's awesome.
So I don't tell my clients stop having coffee. You gotta love coffee. You gotta live your life. But you just gotta manage it a bit differently.
Yeah, so it's all about that balance of,
Yes.
You still live a nice life. You don't have to live on ramen noodles and
absolutely.
and coffee. You can treat yourself, but
Yes.
always be putting money away. And I think, one of the other things, like financial preparation is one thing, but often people get very overwhelmed when they start the finance journey and they start to hear all the terms and the legal jargon, like the, LVR, LMI. I want to do a little bit of a jargon demystifying for our listeners, because I think a lot of the questions we get is like, how many LVRs or LMI are there? And, what is this what you kind of debunk in your first meetings with clients and what they can expect, that you do explain the loan process journey?
I don't do that in my first meeting. I think first meeting or the first call is already overwhelming. Knowing about the terms, the market, the journey. People do ask this question, hey Kiran, what my LMI gonna be? I said, let's keep that for the next meeting. Because then there's too much for you to know and you're gonna get scared. Oh my God, $22,000 in the LMI, just putting in the bin, not getting any benefit of it. So I said, let's keep that for the second meeting. In the second meeting, I will have my screen open with a funding calculator, and I do a few different, let's say if you buy for 600, this happened, look at this base LVR, we added the LMI, this is a final, and I do a few of them, like 600, 640, 650. Some people understand it, I don't have to do that much. Some people don't understand at all. Then by showing them that calculator, I do that. I do give my clients a formula, simple formula, how to calculate the LVR or how to calculate monthly interest. Because sometimes people say, okay, I don't understand this month's interest paid, this month is, so I get them a simple formula, which goes with a number of days. They don't call me later on. They used to in the past. Now people don't call me. They can just recalculate and understand, okay, this is what happened in my bank account. So I try to break it down into a simple methods. I don't put down everything in email professionally to read my long email and understand everything. I will just send them a small text messages, break it down for them to understand.
That's so awesome. I think, service-wise, you just keep proving why you're residential mortgage broker of the year for that nomination, I think, and why you're, an award-winning broker, because one of the things that you've described is these bite-sized chunks, like understanding LVR, LMI, like all this terminology. It is overwhelming, and I'm like, your mind would just boggle. But I like the idea that you're actually showing them a calculator.
Yes.
And as you're doing it, you're explaining the equations. I often say, when people say no to something, or they're confused, or they're panicked or scared, it's often because they don't understand the why.
Yes.
And they don't understand, well, why do I need to understand this?
Yes.
And I don't know how it works. If they understand how and why, they're often, a lot more calm and confident in their journey. So I think that's super important. And to add to that, I was going to say, stories have always connected this, and we're using a lot of examples. Could you share a memorable moment or a client success story from your experience at Deals with Loans where your guidance made a big difference in someone's home buying journey?
I'll share the most recent story, which I recently posted on my social media as well. One of my young clients, she's going through a divorce and she's got a 2-year-old son. and the house was gonna go away. So it's not buying. Obviously, the taking over the property. It's pretty much like buying for her. She's in the property. She was not gonna get the full custody of the son if she didn't have the house, and she was gonna find it hard to get the house because when they first bought the property, she wasn't a part of the journey. So she didn't know, she didn't understand or know what was going to happen. She spoke to a few brokers, she mentioned in the past, and she wasn't getting the right advice of how the process is going to look like, because like a purchase, you're just going to engage a conveyancer when you're getting the title transfer under one name. I've done a few of those clients, for helping women whenever they need, for sure. So I, again, sat down with her, explained her the process, and I got her the pre-approval, pre-approval to get the property transferred under her name. And when I called her, she cried.
Oh my.
She cried loudly. It's not like, you could just, she just screamed, she cried. And I just didn't know what to do. I started crying too.
Yeah,
I just didn't know, like, of course I knew it was very important to her. She didn't share that before, that she wasn't going to have full-time custody and all that.
Yeah.
When we started this journey, obviously. And then she explained all of that to me. And she explained how it was meant. And it's exactly something, I just felt like I changed one person's life. She sent me a message that how much she's in love with it. She's gonna have the house, she's gonna have the son. It's just different. We're not gonna talk about too much, otherwise I'll start crying right now.
I'm terrified. I'm joking. That's
Yeah, so it's some of those stories, honestly, it's like so close to my heart. I feel like I'm able to help her. It's something might be small for me. It's a client, but so big for her. Lifetime thing.
What a massive difference to make. I think, I actually did a video on social media the other day saying we have a lot of single women that contact us because they don't have another partner to bounce off. I don't know if it's specific to women, it's probably single men as well, but the phone calls I get are a lot of women that ring Abodey, and say, I need help, I just don't know where to start or what to do. Yeah. Because when we're in a partnership or you're buying with someone, you do have someone to
take care of it,
take care of things, or divide the tasks and say, hey, you do finance, I'll do the the conveyancing side and manage all of that together. When you're by yourself, it's so overwhelming. I love that story that you shared. Honestly, I was tearing up the whole time because what an impact. You didn't even know that what was hanging in the balance was the
I think it's important, but I didn't know that it's about her son as well as the house too.
Yeah, of course.
But I do want to add for everyone here, even if you have a partner, you're buying a property together, be part of the journey. Don't leave everything to your partner. Not for this reason. There could be, life is uncertain, and I've seen many of those times. What I personally do with my clients who are partnered, I create a WhatsApp group and I make sure all the communication stays in that group. Many times, especially from the background I come from, men take care of everything in the house and we tend to take it easy. But I create a group and I say, just read in the group. You're not writing anything, you're not doing anything, you're just in the group. One day you need to go back, you need to read everything, what happened in the purchase transaction,
Yeah, it's like you're both informed and you're involved in the journey.
Exactly.
So it's not like just deal with my, my husband or deal with my wife.
Yeah.
They're going to manage everything.
Yeah.
I love that. And look, on the lighter side, what do you think is one of the more, surprising or unexpected challenges that you faced as a mortgage broker? And how did you handle it?
It's not a surprise. Sometimes, like we just discussed before, what is LVR? I think sometimes it can be a biggest challenge to explain to your clients, to be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, oh God, let's do it this way. Not many people are great at their mathematics with numbers and all that. Sometimes I find that very challenging.
You would struggle with me. Maths and me we're not friends. The calculator's my best friend, but my partner, she gets very frustrated with me when explaining maths. She's always like, oh my God.
I'm actually talking to someone in a really great industry, a very smart person right now going through the journey. And I'm actually surprised at the questions I've been asked. And sometimes I feel like, are you mean to ask me this question? Because they're so smart,
Yeah.
But I guess they're smart in what they do.
Yeah, and I think that's often, it's a misconception, right? It's like you might be book smart, but you might not be street smart, and you might have no idea
Exactly.
of so many things. And it's very similar in the mortgage journey. It's like you might be in property, you might be, an advocate, but you don't know the ins and outs of mortgages. You're so very linear in property. You only know really just to make sure they've got pre-approval and they're good to go, but all of the other factors, you're not, I guess, required to know. It's similar to mortgage brokering with buyer's advocacy. You're not expected to know what
they do. Exactly.
But I think it makes you such a weapon as a professional to have a basic understanding of every part of the transaction, because, like you said, then you have conversations with your clients that you can explain the journey from start to finish and help them understand why having a buying team is so important, And it leads me to that other question, like often buyers will come with their other professionals, like maybe they've already got an advocate working with them if they're a bit further advanced, or they've got a conveyancer that they do know. How important is it for buyers to have a buying team that they've formed at the beginning of the journey, do you think? Or is the broker really that? Because I know you're the first point of contact.
Yes. I think it is very important that you have a great team backing you up. You don't want to have your broker saying, oh no, your conveyancer didn't do it, or your conveyancer saying, oh, your broker was meant to do it. It's very important to have a great A team backing you up. We don't even go to our clients. We just like, give us your accountant, give us your conveyancer, give us all the people you're dealing with, if you already have them. If you don't have them, we'll connect you. But if you already have them, give me a list of them. We put them in the notes. These are the people. We're not going to call our client for a small thing that conveyancer can do it. Or the same with the conveyancer makes it so much easier for the clients. And some of the things they don't need to understand. They don't need to understand that the conveyancer need to invite the bank for settlement.
Yeah.
So we'll just go directly to the conveyancer. But having the great team in the background, I think it is very important.
Makes a smooth transaction.
Very smooth, yes.
Because I've seen that work out really well for, buyers. Like I know myself, I'm very big on the right professionals, because I've been in the very first scenario.
Yes.
My very first home, and I'm like, oh my God, broker was shocking. And I had issues with, loans and not being explained some of that they missed a few steps with me, and we ended up having to pay more, and we got LMI. And I'm like, how did we get LMI when you said we're not at that limit? He said, I got the limit wrong.
Oh,
and
yes.
Okay, it's not that big of a deal, fine, we'll pay the insurance, but for us as our first home, we just couldn't understand how this happens. Like,
I think you're too kind to say it was not a big deal. I mean, I'll make a big deal with anybody I'm dealing with, I feel like my client's money is very important every single time.
And I think this is the difference with service.
And this is why when I talk about refinance, I don't simply say, let's refinance it for you. I'm going to cut it down to see what are you going to benefit out of it.
Yeah,
or I'm the only one benefiting.
Yeah, it's like, how do you manage your finances? If you need to refinance, should you do it?
Yes.
Do you need to do it?
Yes.
Because it might benefit you, like you said before, having a way to fix part of that loan and then have the other part variable, and it works in your favour. So I really liked that answer as well. And, we're coming to the end of our time today, but for the listeners, just starting their property journey, they're tuning in now, can you recommend a few, resources or practical tips they should be using right now to get financially ready for buying a home?
Yep. Have a pre-approval, number one. Have a mortgage broker sooner. Engage a conveyancer. You're going to pay them a fee regardless for the settlement. Have them sooner. Don't go till the end. Even if you have a small deposit, reach out to your broker and make sure your contract is reviewed before you sign it. Don't sign because you're making an offer.
I love it. Very practical tips and simple in the essence of it. It's just make sure you're ready.
Yes.
I love that. And, lastly, I think you're the right person to ask this question to. If someone today is listening and they're feeling overwhelmed or maybe a bit lost in the journey, what's your number one piece of actionable advice to them?
Yeah. I think have the plan. It doesn't matter what you're doing, what you need to do, have the plan. And that plan can be starting with a mortgage broker, for sure. Sit down and tell everything, and you'll have a plan that is tailored to you, suitable to you.
Amazing. I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Kiran, for being here today. What a wonderful conversation. I loved hearing about your journey, and that story, I'm going to think about it. You will see a snippet of that story on our socials.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I just would love to, spread that awareness around. I think, you interview very, very well, and I think everyone here listening would definitely feel that. For the listeners who want to learn more or connect with you, what's the best way to reach you?
You can see I'm very passionate, so you can find me everywhere on the social media. But you can directly contact me on my mobile, which is 0412 491 044.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kiran, for joining us and for generously sharing your knowledge. And for the listeners, we'll put those details in the episode description so you can jump straight onto Kiran's website. You can contact her directly. Do get in touch. I think a conversation is free to have. What have you got to lose if you've been feeling the overwhelm, or maybe you're thinking about buying a home, you don't know where to start? Kiran would be, the right person to get in touch with and have that conversation. So thank you everyone for tuning in today, and thanks again, Kiran, for being here.
Thank you, Jo.
And lastly, remember to subscribe, share this episode with your network or a friend that you know who's maybe going through a tough time financially, or maybe they're trying to buy their first home and you've heard some horror stories about their broker. That there's a good one that they can chat to. And join us next time as we cut through the noise and tackle your property journey together. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the No BS Real Estate Podcast, powered by Abodey AI. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need it. If you're looking for more guidance on your home buying journey, you can visit www.abodey.com.au for expert advice, property insights, and the tools you need to find the right home with confidence. If you're already on your journey, you can also download our app. Just search Abodey AI on the App Store or Google Play. Have any questions or want to connect, you can follow us on Instagram at abodey.com.au or send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.